everyone, welcome back to Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris back with a match preview for Newcastle United's next upcoming game, a fixture I absolutely hate. And what a fixture to have straight after an international break. Yes, it's Saturday, 3 p.m. away down at the dreaded Amex Stadium, a place where Newcastle United in the last 8 games have not won a single game. We've drew 5 and we've lost 3. I'm not looking forward to this fixture at all, but I'm going to get stuck into it as best as I can, talk about how I think the lads are going to line up, how I think they should line up, how Eddie may line them up, talk about the danger players for Brighton, one in particular, who's a former Newcastle United player, kind of a fashion, even though he never played for us, but they're a good side. I'm concerned about this. Injuries are coming at the worst time for this game. I'm going to get stuck right into this and tell you exactly what I think about the game. If that's the kind of thing you guys like, smash subscribe below. Help get us to the next milestone. We're close to 12,000. Really, really want you to smash that button. Shares with family and friends. It's all free content with Evermore. All you got to do is click a little share button, hit the bell so you don't miss any videos. If you do want to be a member, there is an option down there below. It's entirely up to you. But if you want to just keep watching for free, fire away. Let's get stuck in then. So, as I said, this fixture is notoriously horrible for Newcastle United. I kind of spent a little bit of time earlier watching the fixture from last season where a certain Swedish player who will not name scored a penalty to get us a point down at the Amex last season. But the game was an interesting game. And Brighton can be beaten, and Brighton are a little bit streaky at times and streaky this season. But I just want to talk a little bit about Fabian Hurtzler's team and a little bit about what I think about that manager and that team. I think they were such an exciting team to watch. You know, from a neutral fan's point of view, if you weren't playing them, I think they're an excellent side. You know, they've got energy, they've got pace, you know, the tactical nous that he does in game where he empties the midfield and puts balls over the top and he plays out from the back and he presses high. And I think he's such a talented young manager. And no disrespect to Brighton, he's probably destined for maybe a bigger job than Brighton, and no disrespect to them because I really rate them as a club. And I think they're an excellent example of what to do when you come up from the championship and stay in the Premier League and build and grow. I love the players that they scout. They find players from nowhere for buttons. They turn them into superstars and sell them for hundreds of millions of pounds. And they're kind of the model that most Premier League teams should follow. So I've got a lot of admiration and respect for Brighton and Hove Albion, but I do worry about them as a team in terms of us getting something against them. And you know the injuries that we've got. I'm going to get into the lineup in a minute. And now if the injuries were not there, I guarantee you this, I would have put Tino Livramento and Lewis Hall in this side, because with the players that Brighton have at their disposal in the shape of Matoma, if he's fit to play, and Yankuba Minter, we are in serious bother with pace on the transition with this side, no doubt about it. And Tino and Hall would have been the best options to play, but I don't think that is what we're going to, well, we're not going to be able to do it because they're both injured, aren't we? What we're talking about. We're not going to be able to do it. And that is a real concern for me in this game. But let's get stuck in and see what I think we're going to do. I'm really torn on this, right? Because we know the injuries we've got. We're missing Tino, we're missing Hall, we're missing Ramsey, we're missing Wissa. I'm a little bit pessimistic about this game, as you can probably tell already, because we've got a horrible record here. We never do well down at the Amex Stadium, really. They're a good side. They're very streaky this season. This is a team, by the way, that beat City and beat Chelsea and beat them well, beat them with pace, beat them with aggression, beat them with energy, beat them with quality football, good finishes, right? And then there was shit the week against Wolves. They couldn't kick their own arse, really, and they had to rely on a Van Heck header to save the day. So they do have moments where they can be a bit streaky, can be up and down. They've definitely got a penalty in them as well, by the way. They're 2 centre-halves. I seen Lewis Dunk, was it the Bournemouth game? He played it short for Semenyo, and then Van Heck wiped them out for a pen. Van Heck took down Willock last season for a penalty as well. Pace running at them is a danger for Van Heck. And Lewis Dunk, there's no doubt about that. So Newcastle could use the pace in their arsenal to cause trouble for Brighton, but we have to be absolutely bang at it in this game. But what worries me is what happens when they come on to us with the injuries that we've got. But I'm going to get stuck right in to the lineup. This is how I think we are going to line up. Now, I toyed with this. Eddie could easily just stick to the same formation he had against USG and against Nottingham Forest, where he goes 4-3-3. Dan Burn at left back against Yankuba Minter terrifies the fucking life out of me. It really, really does. I love Dan Burn. I'm going to caveat that. Dan Burn is awesome. Love Dan Burn. Dan Burn's been classed as centre-half. Dan Burn's in England international, by the way, now as a centre-half. Dan Burn is not a left back, especially against one of the quickest players in the league. And in 7 games, he's got a goal and 2 assists and he looked absolutely terrifying against Man City and Chelsea, two really good sides where Minter really fancied it and upped this game. Brighton fans, if you're in the comments, let me know. I think he is a bit streaky, Minter. He's a little bit up and down, but in the big games, he likes the limelight and he likes to show you what he can do. Last season, he tied Tino Livramento up in knots, and Tino's one of the fastest players in our team to score that goal that he scored. And when he did that weird celebration where he didn't celebrate, even though he didn't play for us, very odd thing. But anyway, that's a real threat for me. So I'm going to go with this formation. I think anyhow we'll go back to the back five. Now, I think what he's going to do is he's going to have Malik Chow, Sven Botman, and Dan Burn as a left-sided centre-half and a back three. Now, the left back position is very important, the left wing back position. I think he's going to put Jacob Murphy in as a right wing back and Kieran Trippier over on the left-hand side as a left wing back. Now, Kieran Trippier's not blessed with loads of pace either. Pace can frighten Kieran Trippier too, but with Joe Linton in alongside that, help him and burn out, with Trippier's nous and his positional sense, we might have enough to stop Minter's threat on the break coming at us as well. But that is a huge, big challenge for the old dad's army to get through, because that kid can seriously run, you know, and then the fullbacks can overlap as well. You know, I think Veltman's an injured doubt as well. That is a real concern for me. And if they empty that midfield like Huertzler can do and they bang a ball over the top and it's just Dan Burn on his own with Minter's pace and Trippier's up the other end trying to whip across him, then we may be in big trouble. But I think the best way for how to get a result in this game is to go to the back five, have those three at the back. We've got Malik Chow's pace to deal with Matoma if he's fit. On the other side, who's an excellent player. I know he's not registered any assists or goals yet this season, I don't believe, Matoma, but he's a fantastic footballer. The way he runs the ball, he glides around the pitch, pops up in dangerous positions, so comfortable with the ball, draws players in, can go left or right, shift the body weight. Excellent footballer, really, really good footballer. The kind of player I'd love in black and white, to be fair. But he's touch and go for the game. He pulled out the Japan squad. I think he'll be fit for this, and I think he'll play in this game, to be brutally honest with you. They are missing some injuries, as I said, though. Hinshelwood's out injured as well. They're missing him in defensive midfield. So most likely it'll probably be, I think it is it Aya? Yeah, Ayara or Aya alongside Baliba, who's an excellent player. Nearly went to Manchester United in the summer. His performances maybe haven't quite been on point. Maybe his head was turned a little bit there. Bit of the Mark Gahey situation from last season when we tried to get him. But Aya likes a shot from distance as well. So we need to make sure that we close down these players if they get in and around 20 yards from our box. We're going back to the most important thing, Newcastle United's lineup. So I think we'll have the three in midfield with Bruno Guimaraes, Sandro Tonali, and Joe Linton. Joe Linton's very important in this game. He needs to be disciplined. He needs to be there covering Dan Burn and Kieran Trippier on that left-hand side. Do not get an early yellow card, Joe Linton. You will be in serious trouble if you do, because their pace is a threat. If you can't make a tackle, son, you are no good to anybody. So I think that's how we'll line up across the midfield. And Anthony Gordon will play off big Nick Voldemort, who hopefully will give us a little more of a link-up play. Get the ball up to him, let him hold it, let him hold off the defence, maybe draw Van Heck or dunk out, spin it in round behind, get our pace on them. And as I said, when you run them a pace in the box, they're worried, they're dangerous, they're liable for a clumsy tackle. So maybe that's Newcastle's route to get a chance in this game. They've got a very good goalkeeper as well, by the way, in Verbruggen. I think he's an excellent goalkeeper, great shot stopper as well. And they're a good side. I like them. Really good side. I mean, the way they lined up against Chelsea, which was probably the last notable win, but Chelsea did get a red card as well for Chalobah, and that kind of turned the game a bit. But they beat Chelsea 3-1 at the Bridge. They had Rutter up front, who again was busy, worked hard. Gomez in the midfield off him, who's also an injury doubt, came off injured for Paraguay, so he may miss the game as well. He's touch and go being assessed. Minter was on his favourite right-hand side, where he's done the most damage. In the last game against Wolves, he was over on the left. He was nowhere near as effective. Matoma was obviously over on the left-hand side there. They had Baliba and Iare. And then the back four was Veltman, who's an injured out for this game. Van Heck and Dunk, who I've talked about. Then they had the full-back, who's is it Catalugio, I think it is. And then Verbruggen in goal. So that's probably how they will line up if the injuries, don't obviously cause them problems there. There's three players there who will start in this team in terms of Veltman, Gomez, and Matoma if they're fit, but they are touch and go for the game. I think at least two of them will probably be fit. But going into Newcastle United's element in this game, and where do we win this game? Now, Brighton like to play out from the back. Again, Huertzler has these kind of two or three different tactics he does in the game where he can empty the midfield and bang a ball over the top. Now, if we flood our midfield and we have maybe Sandro that drops a bit further back. If they do that, Sandro can be there to hoover up that long ball and then catch them on the break and run straight through the middle of an empty midfield. So we can nullify that threat by doing that. But if we're pushing hard on them to try and get a goal and they pop it over and it is only Dan Burn there, that's my concern with the pace. Malik Chow is there to cover for pace as well. So if Burn is beaten, you'd like to think that Chow could get across maybe and give that cover, but you don't want to leave the left-hand side exposed for Matoma to find space as well. So that is a danger and a threat. But one thing for Brighton that I've realised that they don't do very well, they do not close down shots on the edge of the box. I've seen Bournemouth do it and scored a worldie against them. I've seen Spurs do it and scored a goal against them as well. They do not close on the edge of their box. They're very much banked in and they allow you to come on to them in the shape that they're in. So if Sandro Tonali or Bruno Guimaraes gets within 20 yards from goal, they should really have a clear shot on goal. Take the fucking shot, lads. Take the shot because they don't come out and press you. So there's an opportunity there to get a shot, even if the keeper spills it and it falls to Nick Voltemade or Anthony Gordon. Have a crack from distance. We need to be doing that. Fabian Schär won't play, but he would definitely have a shot against these lot from distance. You know that. But he won't get in the team because Malik Chow has been superb and I don't think he deserves to be dropped whatsoever. So they're places where Brighton can be got at. And I think Newcastle can get at them. We need to stay disciplined in our shape. Allow them to come on to us because they play out from the back. As I say, they'll use the pace of Minter and Matoma if he's fit out wide. You know, Rutter will try and get in amongst our back two or back three. But Chow and Botman are in such good form. Chow's got the pace to help out in terms of the right-hand side if Matoma does tuck inside. He's got the pace to keep up with him and pace to nullify him. Botman's obviously in the middle, let's sweep it up and use the ball really well. If Brighton have pushed on and as I say, empty that midfield and there is no midfield, Botman can play a ball straight through, maybe the big Nick Voltemade to hold it up. So there is ways that Newcastle can get something out of this game. A lot of injury doubts for Brighton there, so it all just depends on who is fit. But with our record being so crap at the Amex Stadium, I cannot sit here comfortably and predict a win for Newcastle United. I just can't do it. I can't do it because I'm not that confident in the win. I really am not. At best, I think we're going to get another draw. And I'll take that. I'll take a draw. I'll take a 0-0 at Brighton. It's a shocking ground for us. Awful results there in the past. Same with Bournemouth. If we can get a draw at Bournemouth and a draw at Brighton away this season, that's a progress for me because we normally have stinkers and play shit in those games. Can Newcastle win this game? Yes, we can. If we do everything that I said, if we're disciplined, we'll hold our shape, and we would take advantage of what Brighton's weaknesses are, you know, run at them with pace in the box, commit them to making tackles from Van Heck and Dunk, get a penalty, put a penalty away. I mean, Christ, if Nick Voltemade gets another penalty, you couldn't get more tucked in top corner if you tried. He took the last one in bed and fucking give it a nice hot drink of cocoa to go to sleep. That's how good that penalty was last time. So we get a pen. This kid's buried it, no doubt. Touch wood. Please, football gods, don't curse me for that. Mark will tell me off for saying that. But, you know, we can get at these guys. We can go at them. We can be aggressive. We can get in their face. We can stop those runs in behind. But they press high as well. So if we're going to play out from the back with Chow and Botman and Burn, you know, and Trippier and Murphy in the full-back positions, we have to be very, very careful we don't overplay and get caught out here. Bruno in particular, who likes to fuck around and do silly little passes and little Cruyff turns, he cannot do that against these lot because they will press him high and they will get the ball off him. So this is going to be a really, really difficult game for Newcastle United. There is no doubt about that in my mind. We're neck and neck in the table. We're on the same points in the table. I actually thought that Brighton were having a way better season than us in terms of how well they were playing, but they are streaky. You know, they haven't had a great kind of run of consistent fixtures. You know, they play really well and beat City and Chelsea, and then they go and draw against Wolves. I mean, looking at them in the actual season itself, in terms of what they've done, they've played 7 matches, they've scored 10 goals, and they've conceded 10 goals, and they've got 7 assists. Now, if you compare that to Newcastle United, who, you know, attacking wise have been nullified, certainly in the first 3 games where we didn't have a centre forward, we've played 7 games, scored 6 goals, conceded 5 goals, and had 4 assists. So defensively, we're way better than Brighton, but offensively, we're not as good as Brighton. In terms of what they do better than we do, a lot more of their passes are in the attacking third. So in terms of our passing in the opposition half, we only have about 68% of our passes so far this season have been in the opposition half, and Brighton's is 70%. You know, so they're a little bit better than us in terms of that, in terms of their aggression in the game and pushing a little bit further forward with the ball. They are missing João Pedro, though. There's no doubt about it. They scored those 10 goals, and it's been a mixed bag of 2 goals for a handful of players. Nick Voltemada's got 4 goals for us. So that's a proper centre forward who's carrying the load of scoring goals. So they don't have that. They haven't seemed to have really covered that back up in terms of replacing what João Pedro gave them. So we can talk about Isaac till we're blue in the face, but they haven't recovered from João Pedro either. There's no doubt about that. Welbeck chips in with goals, or to use his full name, Danny fucking Welbeck, because he always comes and haunts Newcastle. It would be a former Sunderland player, wouldn't it? They need to make sure if that shithouse is on the pitch from the start or comes off the bench, do not give him fucking space, lads. Every time we've played against this fucker, he has space. For the love of Christ, if Danny Welbeck comes on the pitch, somebody fucking mark him, because he just seems to have the space. He's got more fucking space than Doctor Who in the TARDIS. Every single time we play against this guy, somebody get tight and somebody mark the guy, for God's sake. He's about 46 and he still scores goals passes. If Danny Welbeck scores at the weekend, I'm going to come on here in the post-match and go fucking mad, because Newcastle United need to make sure they sort that fucking marking out on that player. I'm sick of seeing him score a goal. Anyway, I'm very, very edgy about this game. I really, really am. But for me, I'm thinking a draw for this, guys. I'm thinking a 1-1 draw is what I'm thinking. More realistically, I think we may lose the game 2-1. It just all depends on how it goes with it. If he goes 4-3-3, Burn at left back against Minter, I think we're bang in trouble. But if he goes 5 at the back and Trippier's on the left-hand side, which is the only option we've got, and Joe Linton can do something to cover him, we might be better. But it's all about what the manager does, what tactics he puts in place, what lineup he puts in place, as always, but way more in this game, because we're missing the 2 best full-backs that we have to deal with a team like Brighton's threat on the break with pace out wide. And it's anybody's guess on Saturday, guys. It really, really is. But let me know in the comments below what you think about the lineup. Who would you choose? What tactic would you deploy? Would you go 5 at the back? Would you go 4-3-3? How comfortable are you with Dan Burn at left back against Yankuba Minter? Do you think there's nothing to worry about? Am I being daft? Or like me, do you think it's a real concern? And how do you think the game is going to go? Win, lose, or draw? We always like to hear from you. Drop in the comments, guys. Keep it above the belt. We're all here to talk about football. No need for any abuse. If you act like a prick, I'll give you the flick. Haven't said that in a while, but just thought I'd remind you about it. But I'll be back with a post-match analysis for this game on Saturday. Hopefully, I'll be smiling. But man, I'm edgy about this game. I really, really am. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember to like and subscribe. Have a belter. We'll see you soon. Cheerio.
Heroes celebrate. They have done it.